Well, Tim, thank you for joining me on the ODAT Chat podcast.
It's so great to be here, Arlena. Thanks for having me.
Listen, this was a long time coming. I've known you like virtually for a very long time because we run in the same circles, but I'm so glad that I have an opportunity to interview you. We're going to be doing the Stress Elimination Summit coming up pretty soon, so I'm super excited about that. What what inspired you to put that together?
As a music therapist, my specialty is understanding how music turns off stress in the nervous system. And as a person in long-term recovery, knowing the role stress plays in triggering cravings and eventually relapse, putting the two and two together, like I really feel like as a public service for people in recovery, them understand that's great English. For them to understand the role that their nervous system plays in their ability to withstand cravings is vital. Because if you're doing good work during the day, but then you're being stressed by something in life, the stressed brain craves by design. And so if they don't understand that connection, they're going to be looking in the wrong direction for how to handle that moving forward. And so I wanted to equip people with as many different tools to develop stress resilience as possible. And of course, in the peri-COVID world that we're living in right now, there is metaphorically and literally a global increase in daily stress. And so people in recovery are just at risk for relapse even more than they already were. And so I used to host music therapy conferences for my professional association, and I loved it. I loved throwing the party. But I inherited that role. And so I always knew what my overhead was. I knew what my expectations were. I had a built-in audience, but to like start my own conferences, I was like terrified. So 10 years ago, I was going to have my first summit. I still haven't, because like, how do you throw your first, like it blows my mind logistically. But when it came to throwing an online summit, the overhead is drastically less and the moving parts are drastically less. And I thought, oh, I could pull that off. So I did my first summit over the summer and it was successful and it was fun. And those two being a key. And so I thought, well, let's do that again, but let's just scale it up even more. And let's really point it at people in recovery and giddy up. And it's just a great public service. And it's great for me to get to create my own platform. It's a great way for me to shine a light on other people that I know are doing good work in the space. As a speaker, like I've been on a lot of other stages, and now I get to bring the best of who I've seen when I've been out on the road onto my stage. And that is fun.
Oh my God, that's so exciting. Yeah, I'll be speaking at your summit, so
Yes, you
I cannot
will.
wait. So
I know. I'm
exciting.
so happy to have you. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. You have some great speakers. I will leave links, obviously, to have people sign up, and we'll give everyone the full lineup in the show notes on the website at odatchat.com. But if someone's in front of their computer, where would you send them?
StressEliminationSummit.com.
.com. Easy peasy. Well, listen, I thought it would be fun to start with the lightning round, so to speak. I kind of gave you a little warning. I don't always do that, but I
Okay,
was like, what the hell? I'm going to give
here it
them a
is.
little heads up. So what is your favorite, I call it Quitlet, but your favorite recovery book?
Ooh, favorite recovery book. Gosh, you know, I don't know if I have a favorite, but I'll pick one that I love and I think is great is Russell Brand's Recovery.
Mm.
So it updates the language of the 12 steps into the 21st century. And I think that's really important for a lot of people, because when I read those 12 steps and I read that big book, it sounds like a bunch of old white men in the 30s, because it was.
Because it is.
Because it is. So, Russell's vernacular is current and language is dynamic. And so he breathes new life into something that's a beautiful model, and I think
Yeah.
deserves it's just like throwing a new your paint job on your house needs to be updated every so often, and I think the 12 steps deserve this update, and I think he did a great job of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, no disrespect to the old literature.
Not at
But
all.
yeah, yeah, I mean, I love it. That's what saved my life. And it's
Yep,
so
me too.
nice. It's so nice to have supplemental new stuff. So,
Always.
and he's so thoughtful. He's so smart. So I actually haven't read it. So I
Oh,
know
it's great. It's great.
embarrassing. I haven't read it yet, but yeah, I will totally put that on my list. Do you have a go-to mantra or quote that you live by?
There's one that I'm finding myself actually saying at the end of my weekly Facebook lives, which is find the good
Mm.
and focus on it. And that's an opportunity in the moment, and it's an opportunity in the day. And it's a function of my daily gratitude practice. I have a gratitude journal at night. I write, a minimum of 3 things that I'm grateful for from the day. And but just how do you translate that during the day and not like retroactively assign gratitude, but how do you look for gratitude in advance? Your life is a function of your attention, what
Mhm.
you attend to. So you can find the good. It's out there and it's in here. And it's just, that's the game. For me, the game
Right.
is to go find the good. And some days it's easier than others, but it's always there. And so that's just been a useful, useful formula or mantra.
No, I love that. I mean, I feel like our brains are designed to look for the negative out of survival mode, but
Absolutely.
we have to get out of survival mode at some point
Yes, we
and
do.
be intentional about focusing on the positive. So I love that. That's really good. Very useful. Yes. Do you have you kind of touched on this already. Do you have a regular self-care recovery routine? Is it like a daily thing or a weekly thing?
I don't think we have enough time for me to break down my morning. It is complex and it is full, but I'll sum it up and I'll say it like this. I give the first 3 hours of every day to me before I give any time to anybody else.
3 hours to
And
me.
that's my recovery. Yeah. Everything I'm doing in that 3 hours is to build the physical, mental, social, spiritual Tim, to
Okay.
put air in those tires, to repair the flats, to develop my own physical, emotional, spiritual, social resilience and immune system. And that's what I'm doing every day. And that's how the day starts. And then throughout the day, so my definition of spirituality is any conscious act that connects me to something outside of myself.
Hmm.
So my day, one of the things I focus on during the day is my connection. So am I connecting? Who am I connecting with? How am I connecting? Like it's a verb. And so even after those first 3 hours where I'm doing a lot of connecting to my body, to nature, uh, to we like what would I call it? I would call it like universal consciousness. But then during the day, how am I fostering that connection with humans, with my dog, with my neighbors, with the checkout clerk? Always with the checkout clerk.
Right.
My connection to the checkout clerk is a spiritual practice. It's like, here's an opportunity to connect to another part of myself. Ready, go. And I used to look at it as useless small talk.
Hmm.
And now I look at it as a spiritual practice. And
Spiritual.
so for me, that's what recovery for me is they're one and the same.
Oh, that's beautiful. Connecting throughout the day.
Yeah. So suffice to say that the way I look at myself is in 4 quadrants, like physical, mental, social, and spiritual. Like those are the 4 tires of my recovery vehicle. So my daily recovery practice, its hygiene, is that I am focused on how do I repair the tires and how do I keep the tires inflated. And the increment to do that in as a best practice is daily.
Right.
So all my actions and I list them in my book, but there's like 22 different things in the morning that I do every single day to it takes a while to get this pretty. That's all I have to
What
say.
time do you wake up?
5 a.m.
Okay, 5 a.m. You're like Jocko Willink with the super early.
Yeah, man. It was a long time coming because I'm a musician. And so my story is that I was a night owl. and I'd be in the studio from midnight to 5 a.m., and now I'm in bed at 9, like even on the weekends. Bye,
Wow.
kids. Yeah. And because I need 8 hours,
Okay.
my brain needs 8 hours for a proper rinse cycle. And so I just know that about my body at this point after traumatic brain injury. I'm well, like me and my brain we know each other really well. It was a great opportunity to learn about my brain. And yeah, that's, start with the 8 hours. When do you want to wake up? Well, that determines when you're going to go to bed.
Okay.
Because
8 hours of sleep,
as my
5
dad
a.m.
said, when I was a kid, I'd be like, Dad, why is my curfew midnight? And he just looked at me and he's like, dude, nothing good happens after midnight. And he was right.
He was
He was
right.
right. All the times where I wish I could hit the undo button. After midnight, we're gonna hit the undo switch. After midnight, after midnight. Right? That's it. That's the real lyrics from Eric Clapton, ladies and gentlemen.
There it is. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Okay, so mental, spiritual, physical, social, and that's your morning routine. And you mentioned doing 3 things you're grateful for at night before you go
Yep,
to sleep.
that's right before my head hits the pillow, so I end in a state of gratitude.
Gratitude last. Beautiful. What's one thing that you wish you knew when you first got sober?
Ooh, I wish that I knew that trauma is not just the bad things that happen that shouldn't, but the good and right things that should have happened but didn't. And that's a quote from Gabor Mate that I didn't hear till 2016, and I started my recovery journey in 2003. So I kind of wish I'd been exposed to the conversation around trauma beyond the obvious, which was physical and sexual abuse.
Okay.
Because my sexual trauma, if you will, comes from spiritual trauma, from being a hyper religious Catholic family upbringing and crying myself to sleep at 8 years old, thinking I'm going to hell.
Oh.
And then discovering masturbation. And that was the first time I wasn't terrified in bed in 6 years.
Wow.
And, that was the only place that was the only way I felt relief from the spiritual terror that I was experiencing as a boy. And I didn't even think you could have trauma in any other way. And then as I started to investigate, this 4-tier approach, the physical trauma was obvious. The emotional trauma was pretty obvious, but then social trauma and spiritual trauma, what would those look like on the court? And started to examine how people can experience trauma in those categories. And that was when I put the pieces together. Because when I was in early recovery, I'd hear guys in the rooms talk about trauma that they had. And I was looking in the mirror like, well, what's wrong with me? I don't have an abuse story, but I'm in this room. So I must be a real degenerate. Are we allowed to swear on here, or is this a clean podcast?
Please. No.
Okay. So the thought was like, well, how did I fuck this up? I didn't have anything happen to me. Like I just took a perfectly good kid and fucked him up. That was the way I was thinking about myself in recovery for the first several years.
You did not know? Did you repress the sexual abuse?
No, there wasn't any. It was this shame of masturbating because it was a sin and I shouldn't do it. And we didn't talk about it. And like my dad would find a porno mag and it would disappear, but he wouldn't tell me he took it.
Oh my God.
So the honest conversation about masturbation, which is a pretty normal human function, never happened with my dad. It was one of those things like in my family's house, there was this thing where if something was so bad, we don't even speak of it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my dad finds my Playboy, which I borrowed from my buddy, right?
Yeah.
And then it's gone. Well, I know he took it. He knows he took it. He knows I know he took it, but no one's talking about it. And so that must fit in the category of this is such a bad behavior. We're not even talking about it.
Right.
Because that was the good and right thing that shouldn't happen, but what didn't was an honest conversation about our genitalia. When you hit 14, this thing, what's this thing doing? What? Who strapped this on me? It's a terrible experience. I don't know what it's like for women with what you go through with your hormones as a teenage boy, middle school and high school, particularly, 7th and 8th grade with this thing. It had a mind of its own. It was terrible. Terrible.
Here.
Oh my God. I don't wish it on anybody.
Yeah, I hear it's like a little gopher. It likes to pop up
Oh,
unexpectedly
geez,
occasionally.
that's fantastic. Totally. Totally. I heard a
Hey,
great quote the other day. Someone was like, don't mind that. It's just a mutiny in the lower ranks. And I was like, I wish I had that earlier. That's funny.
mutiny.
A mutiny in the lower ranks.
I
It's
love
got a
that.
mind of its own.
It's
But I mean, this is the honest truth. This is what boys go through. So, like, hook a brother up. Tell him.
oh my
Tell
God.
him his penis is going to start getting erect. Tell him when he plays when it feels good. Like, just tell him. Don't leave
Yeah.
him in the dark. He's going to be like, I don't know. Is this good? Is this bad?
Right.
Yeah.
But you mentioned like the religious component to it because
Yeah.
that is a mindset, a framework, if you will, of right and wrong and
Oh, yeah.
shame, and God's everywhere and he's watching you. And I was like, oh, please don't be watching me during this moment of my
Yes.
life. Hopefully you
Yes.
didn't see that. Or it's like, it was tough to reconcile.
Yes.
But
All of that.
why don't we do this? I would love to hear like the traditional story, what it was like, what happened,
Sure.
what it's
Yeah.
like now. And then
Sure.
we have some amazing things to talk about. I want to hear about your music therapy, and I want to know more about your book, Sonic Recovery: Harness the Power of Music to Stay Sober. I think that's amazing.
Thank
Music
you.
is so healing. Congratulations on completing that. But
Thank you.
I'll give you, do you want to take like 10-15 minutes and tell me your
Sure.
story, and then we'll
Sure.
jump in and talk about your book.
Yeah. In fact, what I'm going to do, because
Are you gonna set a timer?
I'm going to set a timer
I
because
always set a timer.
I have to, because I'm like
Listen,
water. I fill the time given. And
yeah.
so, this could be a marathon. So,
I mean, listen, you and I are very aligned in the idea that I love talking about recovery. It's
yes,
endlessly fascinating.
endlessly fascinating until I'm like dehydrated, exhausted, and have to pee. And I'm like, I must stop talking. I have to break. So, um, yeah, I'm a kid who was born in 1972. I grew up in a little town in Connecticut with both parents, three older siblings that were 7, 9, and 10 years older than me that kind of left the house early. And so I was kind of like family 2.0. And so I kind of had the experience of growing up as an only child, yet with three older siblings. Like I mentioned, a very religious house. I was an athlete and an artist. I still am. And that's how I expressed myself in the world. And I felt like, and upon review, my ACEs score is 0, right? Like I had a very stable. So for those who aren't familiar with
An
that,
ACEs score.
it's the Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey, which is one of the best indicators for both behavioral and physical health problems in adulthood. So for those listening right now, if you haven't looked up ACEs yet, do yourself a favor, because it's a scientifically valid diagnostic tool, and it's very highly predictive. And in fact, we're going to have an expert talking about it at the summit, and how adverse childhood experiences turn into adult physical and emotional problems. So when I discovered ACEs, I was like, oh, the smoking gun, I'll go take the score and they'll probably show me that I have a 4 or higher, and that'll explain it. Well, no, I had like a 0, which meant I had a very stable childhood. And so when I got into rooms, I thought there was something wrong with me because I had such a stable childhood, unlike so many other guys in the rooms, except for that little thing called eternal damnation. Because let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that is some great leverage. Great leverage. Because what if you're wrong? If you bet on that and you bet wrong, your ass is burning for eternity.
Yeah.
And so who's going to take that bet? No, you got me. All right. Might as well play it safe. Don't want to be on the wrong side of that coin. So I was scared shitless as a kid. Shitless of going to hell. My mom was the director of religious education at our little country parish. It's like growing up the principal's kid or the pastor's kid. And so I was supposed to be letter of the law, good Catholic citizen. And when I remember, being a child, crying myself to sleep at night and then discovering masturbation. And I remember thinking, I know this is bad. I remember, and not to be graphic on purpose, but it's just the first night that as a young boy I experienced an orgasm. I remember the thought. The exact thought was, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but it feels so good. What the fuck was that? What just happened?
What just happened?
Let's do that again. Can I do it now? No, clearly not. No, now it's starting to hurt. What is happening? What is my body? What is happening? This is fucking great. Thank God. Wait a minute. Wait, hold on. I'm not supposed to be doing this. Wait, but why? This is the best I've ever felt. But what the fuck? What is this? Another forbidden fruit? Really?
Mm-hmm.
This is the mindset that's right. The next night, I'm masturbating until I'm crying in pain because I'm trying to replicate that feeling of escape. It was instant in my brain, you know? So that began a path of, you know, my brother was 10 years older than me. I had already successfully stolen his porno mags. You know, I had borrowed from friends, and it began chronic masturbation, and really as just a sigh of relief. That's really what I was trying to do. And, you know, alcohol, weed, other substances, tried them. I abused alcohol in college at one point because a lot of adverse events were happening in my life, and I was just getting shit-faced drunk to, you know, cope with it. Thought maybe I'd become an alcoholic. My sister, who was in recovery from an eating disorder, was like, "You're abusing alcohol right now because of this, this, and this that you're going through." She goes, "Hold off on the language of saying you're an alcoholic for now, but know that this is totally what you're doing. You're coping with, you're just crawling inside of a keg. You may not have, that may all be, you may be that, let's take away all the pain and then we'll see if you're still drinking." Stop drinking. Picked up the pipe, started smoking weed. I had, you know, a couple of occasions with it, but found weed to be most of the time preferential to alcohol for me, more fun. I was a mooch, so I would just mooch off everybody all the time, the biggest mooch ever. And but I didn't understand that there were two different types of weed. I didn't know one was a stimulant and one was a relaxer, or not necessarily a depressant, a relaxer, you know. And so when you're a dumb kid and you're smoking illegal weed, you don't know literally what you're putting in your body, and you don't know if you're about to upregulate and become psychoactive or if you're about to chill out. And so I would hit the pipe either way, and a couple of occasions I'd have a psychotic episode. And I realized I need to be careful with psychoactive things, but that didn't stop me from experimenting with other substances, with acid, with ecstasy, with shrooms, all of which I could take or leave. But sex, women, pornography were my kryptonite. I absolutely had to conquer. I had to escape. It was a drug for me. Women were intoxicating. So working in recovery, the phrase I like to use with people, instead of using drug of choice, I ask people, what is your kryptonite? What is that one thing you are powerless around when you're totally in control, give or take any other substance or behavior, put it in front of you. You're like, no, I'm good. But then this thing shows up and you go, fuck, I'm in trouble because I don't know how to say no to that. And that was women, and that was pornography. And then of course, with the advent of online, you know, once we had high speed, that makes things a whole lot worse for an addict, because now
Sorry, I'm on a podcast doing hand signals, and I did the slow image download. Are you feeling that one? the download of the picture.
Holy shit, Batman!
That took an
I
hour.
I know all about that.
You knew exactly what I was talking about.
I've never had this conversation with anybody.
Let alone a woman.
Let alone a woman. Arlena, that's comedy right there.
That's
you just
good, right?
slayed me. You slayed me. Thank you for that. That
You're
was
very welcome. I'm
really,
here to help.
really good. Yeah.
I'll be here all week.
Be here all week. Tried the veal. Yeah, that was great. So yeah, this, you know, women and sex becoming intoxicating. And I was in music, and they say sex, drugs, and rock and roll in that order for a reason. And I was abusing everything I could. And I left rock and roll, and most of the substances went away because I was out of that circle. But pornography and women weren't. And so I was in a training program for Landmark Education to be an introduction leader. And the rigorous honesty and integrity required in that training program is equal only to the 12 steps. And it was during the training when I couldn't get passed off on something, and everyone was like, "You're hiding something. You're slimy." This was people's reaction of me. And in the parking lot, this kid said to me, he goes, "What are you hiding?" And I said, "I'm hiding the fact that I've been unfaithful to my girlfriend for 4 years.
Wow.
Because if I tell her, I'm going to lose her. Yeah. But I can't ask her to marry me now because I'm not going to ask this person to marry me based on this foundation of lies. Right. So this is what I'm sitting on." And he's like, "All right, well, you know what you need to do." And I called a buddy who was also a program leader in Landmark, and I told him my conundrum, and he goes, "Yeah, well, you know what you need to do." And I was like, "Bro, I'm not telling her." He's like, "Okay, well, you're free to do that, but just so we're clear, we're going to complete our friendship because I just can't be in relationship with someone out of integrity at that level."
Wow.
Yep. He was just straight boundary. Boom.
Thank God.
Right? Michael, I love you, because he's the one who gave me the courage. I hung up the phone with her. I called my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and I said, "We need to talk." And I went home and I disclosed that afternoon. And it began the process. And the process led me to a 12-step meeting the next in 48 hours from that moment.
Did you go
thanks to my wife?
SLAA?
SAA. Yeah, Sex Addicts Anonymous. Yeah.
Okay.
SAA-recovery.org. And my wife read an article Monday on the internet about sex addiction. She sent it to me. I read it Tuesday morning. And there was a link to the SAA.org website where you take the questionnaire, 10 questions. If you hit 2 or more, it's a yes. You might have a problem. I said yes to 8. They're very specific questions. It's not like, "Do you like to fuck chicks?" It's really specific. And you're like, "Oh, okay." And so I called the 800 number and I got Klaus. And Klaus said to me, "I got good news for you." I said, "What?" He goes, "I called this same number 10 years ago when my wife served me divorce papers, and we're still married."
That's beautiful.
And in that moment, Klaus gave me hope. Because if Klaus could be further down the line than me and walk it back, hey, what's possible? That's possible. There's a way, there might be a way through this where I get my control over me back and I can maintain my relationship. I can keep the woman of my dreams. It's possible. That's all I needed. That's all I needed was the possibility of it. And that just led me to my first 12-step meeting that night, where once we got halfway around the circle, it was like, "Hi, I'm Tim, and apparently I'm a sex addict." Because what you just said is my story. I've never told anybody, and you told my story, and you told my story, and I've never said any of this shit, and you guys said the exact specifics. And the real kicker was the guy next to me was a minister who was going for sentencing soon because he had touched someone who turned out to be 17 and not 18. And he didn't know that. And now he's going to prison.
Wow.
And I saw the ghost of Christmas future sitting next to me. I thought, here's a man who deeply, his highest self, works in service of his spiritual community. His highest self made a career calling, like made a career decision to minister to others. And yet he couldn't keep his hands off somebody. That scared me. That scared me. So that was like, okay, pay attention. This could be you. And I was okay, all right. And then my next meeting the next night, the room was a little weird, but I did it. And, you know, just the personalities in there. And the next night I went to a different meeting in a different town. And I tell this story and he tells this story. So I'm not outing anybody that isn't already out. The next night in a different town, the trusted servant of the meeting happened to be a guy named Joe P. And he was funny. And I like to think of myself as funny. I'm an East Coast kid. I have a wise ass sense of humor. And I think that's one of the reasons we connect is because you're pretty funny too. And I think our sense of fun and enjoying fun, like immediately I noticed that even over email. And I think we even talked about that. And this guy, Joe P, was telling jokes at the front. And I'm like, I want that. I want what you have. And then I heard, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, at the end of the meeting. And I said, well, I want that. You know, some of the other stuff I heard, I was like, I don't want that, but I want to be able to laugh in the midst of this. So it began a snarky, fun, goofy relationship with this dork named Joe P. Years later, we maintain our friendship. I find out his last name's Polish.
Oh, get out.
Because I'm at his house and there's an award and it says Joe Polish. And I'm like, because he told me he was in carpet cleaning. No, I'm messing with everybody. It's polish, but it's spelled polish and Polish are spelled the same way.
You know what's, sorry to interrupt you, but what's super funny is that my first podcast that I started was called Sales Polish.
Okay.
And so whenever you look it up in iTunes, Joe's podcast always comes up.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. And my buddy, when I named the podcast, he's like, oh, Sales Polish. I was like, oh, F you.
There you go. Because I hadn't heard anybody say Joe Polish. I had heard just Joe P.
Joe P. Oh, that was Joe Polish. That's so cool.
Isn't that funny?
That is so cool.
We became friends in that world.
Okay.
For a couple of years. And then I kind of got to know what he did, but I didn't really care.
Okay, so for people that don't know, how would you describe who Joe is?
Oh man, geez. Joe Polish. So Joe Polish is the world's most connected guy. That's the first thing you need to know about Joe Polish. He's just the funny, goofy, brilliantly smart, infinitely generous human being, self-made man who was all kinds of different addicts, suffered from substance and behavioral abuse, substance use disorder, whatever the phrase you want to use these days. The guy's an addict and he's in recovery. And he's best known probably for his marketing genius. And so he had a company where he taught marketing to carpet cleaners for a long time. And then it kind of generalized to the entrepreneur community. Yeah. He has a wildly successful podcast called I Love Marketing. Successful. So if you want to go listen to some really bad audio, but really good content, go listen to him and Dean Jackson talk marketing and at ilovemarketing.com. And then he runs this thing called Genius Network, which is this mastermind, this group of just incredibly smart and successful men and women with incredibly small egos. Oh,
boy. And that's what's group is very expensive. His mastermind, isn't it? It's super expensive.
It's very high level. And he has two. There's the 25K group and there's the 100K group. And so
that's an annual.
Yep, that's your annual membership to be in that group. So it's for people who have hit a certain level of success with their business and then are looking to scale from there. But he curates that group and keeps it like, it's just, I've never met another group where the ratio of success to ego is so high to low.
Fascinating.
In that group, yeah. So that's Joe. So 12-step begins my journey, and I start going to meetings. And then I move and I plug into, a home group, a couple of home groups here in Southern California. I go back to school, get really busy to become a music therapist. And for the first, 7 years, I'm doing recovery 1.0, where I'm really just working the steps and trying to stay sober. And then I hit recovery 2.0. And that's a tip of the hat to my friend Tommy Rosen, whose book Recovery 2.0 and his platform Recovery 2.0 just talks about that there is a second level that we all naturally aspire to grow into. And as my friend Mike Gavoni would say, is really healing beyond recovery. Mm-hmm. Like what's next past staying afloat? Now, how do we sail? Right. And that journey started I started to hit the limits of what 12-step could provide in that model and needed to go beyond. Right. So 12-step was really good for spiritual. It was really good for social, but I needed to work on the physical. I needed to work on the emotional in a way that wasn't provided inside of that model. Mm-hmm. And so I just, started to just seek out how to take care of myself and heal my pain, heal my trauma, personal development, personal growth, and work that just continually, like no finish line necessary. But if I heal this, then what's possible? If I learn this, then what's possible? And sometimes it's because it was early on, it was like I needed to fix myself. And then it became more of, if I continue to grow and evolve and climb whatever, metaphorical mountain I'm on, what will the view be like from there? Oh. And so a curiosity took over. And so now I'm in this like biopsychosocial spiritual hacker mindset where I am looking to hack my whole self daily just
Right.
to see what happens and see where I can go while I'm here in this meat suit. And I still have my sponsor, and I've been together for 10 years. He lives in Minnesota, and I don't know what I'd do without him. And
Is
then
that
my
Klaus or someone else?
no, it's just another gentleman named Wharton who,
Burton.
yeah, whole side story, but uh,
10
he's
years you guys been working together.
10 years. Yeah. And it's been a beautiful relationship. Like I said, I don't know what I do without him. And then my work started to revolve around recovery. So as a music therapist, I started providing music therapy in clinical settings, residential treatment for addiction. And in my internship, I did working at 28-day rehabs
Mm.
at residential rehabs for specifically working how to use music as a form of recovery. And so then my professional life and my personal life overlapped wonderfully. And so the professional development is the personal development. The personal development is the professional development, right? It's just which side of myself are we, kind of expressing, but now it's total alignment between the two.
I was just going to say that's amazing. I was giving you a little silent applause there because when we can integrate what we do and who we like, you get to be you for a living, right? Like you get
That's
to,
exactly right.
yeah, you get to be you for a living,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to express the purpose that you're on the planet for.
Yeah.
And that's a huge goal. I think that's amazing. You get to live your life's purpose. Congratulations. That's huge.
Well, thank you. And I couldn't have done it alone. And I
Of
couldn't have
course.
done it without the partnership with my wife, Angelique. And I
Yes.
think another nod to another book would be Outliers by Malcolm
Oh,
Gladwell.
yeah.
We do not succeed or fail alone.
Yeah.
Mammals are pack animals. We live in relationship from cradle to grave, and we live in connection and community. And so owning that we are social animals and we rise on the shoulders of each other. Like I'm really happy for where I am, and I'm really clear I wouldn't have made it here, not without her,
That's
because
brilliant.
who she is in the world inspires me daily
Aw.
without her having to say anything.
Yeah.
So I just have to keep up. I'm like just trying to keep up. That's what it's like. I mean, living with a rock star racehorse, just a human being has been it's like a vacuum. It just inspires,
Right.
it's like, it just pulls the best out of me and really constantly, is this great influence without ever being directive.
That's beautiful. I love that. Can we talk a little bit about your book?
Yep.
I'm just so curious. Maybe you could just kind of give me the framework of how
Sure.
people can use music in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started lecturing on music therapy and keynoting on music therapy at conferences for addiction medicine and mental health conferences. And then I thought, people only recall 20%, 30% of what they hear at a keynote, right? So how can I give them a handbook for this? And it's based on my clinical work. And so looking at music everybody knows it's good for their mood and their spirit. But as a board certified music therapist, my degree, I have this super niche degree in understanding the science of music and behavior and understanding how to use music in targeted ways to affect human behavior. Just like a physical therapist nerds out on exercise and really points very specific exercises at very specific problems. And that's what a physical therapist does for a living. A music therapist takes music and points it at a problem very, very specifically. So this way of using music for this reason at this time, it's targeted, it's prescribed. And so wanting to give people a handbook for that, I wrote out the manual, if you will, Sonic Recovery. And it's 3 sections. The basics, which is, a little bit about me, who's telling you all this and what's my journey. A little bit about music from a science perspective, like what it does to your brain and your body, which is the piece that no one knows. But they're super curious because they love music. And so they're like, I didn't know it did that. And then what is music therapy? Like, what is this thing? It's such a niche. There's only 8,000 music therapists board certified in the United States. So I'm usually the first music therapist somebody meets, so what is this thing? What is this modality? And then we get into what are the outcomes? Like, what are the results? Like, what can you help me with? What's the point? And I used to use like clinical jargon, and no one would ever remember what the good was, right? So on a 5-hour road trip from Phoenix to Southern California, being inspired by my friend Hal Elrod and his SAVERS acronym from the Miracle Morning, I was like, Ange, my wife, I was like, we need an acronym. No one's going to remember these goals. So after years of trying to get my clients and patients to remember them, no one ever did. So it is now the word SOBER as an acronym. And these are the 5 outcomes for music in recovery. So 1, music helps you to stay present. Music making is time-based. It's taking place in the present moment. If I want to engage my body in some way, tap, snap, clap, hum, rap, sing, strum, any way that I engage my body with music, I have to be paying attention to the present moment. Mindfulness is a byproduct of music making. Now, if you think about anxiety and depression as 2 emotional trigger states that might trigger a craving for somebody, anxiety is a future-based problem in the brain where there's no perceived control. Depression is a past-based problem in the brain where there's no perceived control. Those are stressors. We can literally cause a stress response in our own nervous system by not being mentally located in the present.
Right.
So how do we pull ourselves out of the past or the future easily? By engaging in music making. So music making allows us to stay present automatically. It allows us to open up. That's the second thing, right? Hans Christian Andersen's famous quote, where when words fail, music speaks. Yes. Music allows us to express emotion. If you break those 2 words down, express means to squeeze out. Emotion, John Bradshaw quotes as being energy in motion. Emotion. So really, emotional expression is all of us trying to get shit out. It's just, we want to get this energy out of our bodies. Now, sometimes language is a good tool for that, but sometimes it's a toll booth because you need the right words. And now you're trying to translate energy into language. And that is a problem because sometimes the energy doesn't have a transliteration. How many times have you been like, someone's like, how are you feeling? I don't know. Ask a teen. They'll go, right? They don't have the language, but they feel it in their body.
Right.
They're feeling it in their body, but they don't have the language to express it. So language becomes a toll booth. Or even if they have the language and they're trying to express it to another human being, you got to have the right listener. Someone who's not going to take it personally, get upset, get triggered, not a mandated reporter. If in that moment that's, a problem, because a lot of times kids will say what they really feel and then they're on 72-hour lockdown.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I can't say dramatically, I feel like killing myself.
Right.
Because that lands me in a horrible hospital for 3 days. I'm not going to ever tell a professional how I really feel. Mm-hmm. And when I have that conversation with guys in recovery, they're like, oh yeah, I stopped telling people. I don't tell any clinician how I really feel. I haven't told anybody since the first. So we are talk heavy in this culture. And particularly if you're dealing with trauma cannot be expressed effectively verbally. And that's the principle of Bessel van der Kolk's entire book, The Body Keeps the Score, is that we need nonverbal experiential modalities to express this emotion, which in that case is trauma. So music allows us to open up. We can process those things, no language required. The third allows us to be creative. Now, recovery is an act of creativity. You are creating a new way to deal with life on life's terms compared to the old way. It's an act of creation. And the human being, the nervous system, when it's in its rest and digest mode, it's in creative mode. It has access to creativity. When we're stressed, we're in reactivity mode. We do not have access to creativity. So if we want to actually consciously create our recovery, we need to be in a state where our nervous system can access creativity. So music turns off the stress response. So it allows us to access creativity. And just remember, creativity is a coping skill. It's how we solve problems and innovate. It's also
Creativity.
related to being artistic, but not everybody's artistic, but everybody's creative.
Right.
Right. So as we engage in music making, it also builds our creative muscle. And so the more we engage in creativity building practices, the more creative we actually become because of the neuroplasticity of our brain. So if you read Carol Dweck's growth mindset work, it really is very inspiring to be like, oh, it doesn't matter where I was, it's where I'm going. Right. And if I build these muscles, they'll support me throughout the rest of the day. Just like if I build my physical muscles, they support me throughout the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. The fourth thing music allows us to do is escape stress in a healthy way. Calgon, take me away. I just dated myself.
I was going to say, for those of us over a certain age.
That's right. We're the ones snickering at that, right? Uh-huh. You know, when we're stressed, we just want to escape.
Right.
And, you know, people escape into the fridge, into the pantry, into the beer cooler, into their phone, into the big screen, into Netflix, you know, and we just want to escape. Yeah. And so, and the modern culture spends all its waking hours designing better and better products to capture and keep you doing that same behavior. So there's that salt, sugar, fat trifecta in food. Food processing is designed to hijack your brain.
Oh, wow.
Hijack your brain, right? Yeah. It's not designed for it to be the healthiest nutrients we can put in your body. No, it's designed to initiate the largest pleasure response possible. That's the purpose of food or food-like products in the 21st century, as opposed to food.
Processed food.
Yeah, processed food. And then the screens are the same. You know, the smartest end up in two places, New York, Silicon Valley, right? In Silicon Valley, what are they designing? They're designing apps, they're designing programs, they're designing content that captures and keeps your attention because you are the product. See, in the United States, we think about consumerism, that we as consumers consume things, and something recently changed and nobody's talking about it. We are now the consumed. We are the product.
True. Yeah.
Our attention is being consumed by AI to build more and more targeted ads.
Right. Oh
it's not the other way around.
Nobody's talking about that. You're right.
Nobody's talking about that. So we think we're escaping into these screens, and it's the perfect spider's web that they've designed to keep us there. Mm-hmm. So what I've created is a protocol called the Relaxation Vacation, and it's anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, and it's a very targeted use of a field-tested and evidence-based procedure of actually leaving the present moment in our memory to slow tempo classical guitar at a very specific tempo, very specific choice of music, to walk us back to a point in our memory where we were safe, connected, feeling love, just like a real positive experience it's in the database. Our brains just aren't designed to go access it very often. It's designed to access the negative, like you said, for survival, and then experience it in your full body. And then bring the feeling back into this present moment to tackle whatever it is that was stressing you out in the present moment. So music's really good at doing that when used correctly. And then lastly, we've got music helps us to reconnect. That's the R. Because as mammals, we're social animals. Spirituality, as I described, as being the thing that we connect with. And so music, when we listen, that's why, like a teenager, and you may remember this, you remember, if you're hearing my voice right now, just think back to a time where you were alone in your bedroom and you felt more connected to the music you were listening to in your bedroom than you felt connected to your parents who were down in the living room.
Always.
And there's a specific reason for that. And that's because the music never scolded you. It never judged you, and it never lectured you. The music was really unconditionally accepting of you. You could turn on the music in any emotional state and it didn't stop and question your emotional state. You could sing along with the music and be off key or forget the lyrics and it doesn't stop. You can play along with the music and not keep the beat and it does not stop. It completely accepts you and validates your experience, and it reminds you you're not alone.
Yes, all those things, man. And it's like when I hear a song from when I was between 10 and 15, I rubber band right back to that place.
Totally.
Like it takes me right back. Just like it's like fragrance and music. Those are
Yeah.
memories to take you right back
Yeah. Yeah.
to
It's
that time.
like a file folder. It's like the little marker on the top of the file is the
Yeah.
song, and then it opens up all the data that's attached to that song. And we use that with Alzheimer's and dementia
Yeah.
patients all the time for just life review. And, they can tell you detailed stories from
Yeah.
that 14 to 24 period in their life, even though they can't tell you where they are in that moment or what day it is.
14 to 24, that's so interesting. My husband is stuck in this period. He loves music. You could play
Mhm.
him two notes of like any Rush song and he would know exactly, or Tool or whatever.
Outstanding. He has good
Yeah.
taste.
Oh, yeah. He's a huge music and he's so funny. He's always talking about, he's got this retention for music that is genius,
Mm.
right? He's like, I can't speak articulately or I can't, he's talks about all these things that he can't do, but music, I mean,
He comes
it's
alive.
amazing. He does, yeah. So he's going to appreciate this conversation for sure.
I found the beauty of leveraging music as a treatment tool is that people seem to have a very powerful, very private, very personal history
Yeah.
with music before I ever meet them. So the neuro association
Right.
that they have in their head when I say music, it's really positive. Overwhelmingly, 99 people out of 100 that I come in contact with, if I say the word music, what they're thinking is their music.
Their music, things that
Yep.
they love.
Yep.
That is,
And that's something that's really important in our research is when it comes to listening to music, if we're not going to make it, and we'll talk about sometimes it's indicated to make music, sometimes it's indicated to listen to it. And when we're listening to it, the research shows that for stress relief, it's music that is important and personal to us.
important and
That is most
personal.
effective. Yeah. So it's like autobiographical. I mean,
Yes, it's the soundtrack to your life.
it is. Yes, it is. And so what we found in music therapy research is that it's those songs from that kind of golden decade where you were coming on board as an identity.
Yeah.
There's a soundtrack.
Yeah.
And you decide, who am I in this world? Am I a punker? Am I a headbanger? Am I a hippie? Like you even associate yourself with a music and you resonate with that music for one reason or another. And there's a socio-emotional identity to that even. And you feel belonging and you feel connection. And there's so many layers of it that are so warm for most people that they don't have to try anything new. They don't have to buy anything new. And so I have an unfair advantage as a clinician because I'm leveraging a tool that they have a very, very special place in their heart for. Because they walk into a treatment center and they do not trust the staff and they do not trust the other clients there, but they trust music. They trust their music. They don't trust their roommate's music. They hate their roommate's music, but their music saved their life.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of like surfing that wave that's already there. That's, talk about when you said meet them where they are. It's absolutely what we're doing. Tell me about your music. I have the greatest job ever. It's not even a job, but I just have the greatest gig ever because I'll be on a plane going to a conference and I'll just say, tell me about your music.
That is brilliant.
Any human being, tell me about your music.
Tell me about your music. And that says so much about them.
And off we go. And they're talking about like their best friend. And that's the thing. Like if you and I, because we have a mutual friend named Joe Polish. So that allowed us to just jump in together.
I mean, he doesn't know me, but I like him.
Well, isn't that what's funny though? You know what I mean? Like we didn't know each other from Adam, but it was like, oh, Genius Recovery. That's it. Okay. We're buddies.
Yeah. Right? I love it. You love it.
The mutual connection was Joe in that case. And we each had our own positive relationship with Joe. And what we did was we borrowed that credibility.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. Like if you go to a party and you don't know anybody there, it can feel a little weird. But if you know one person there and you hang with them and then they introduce you to all the other people at the party, that mutual friend is the conduit of connection. And music is the mutual friend between all of us.
I love that. Wow. Man,
it's an instant bridge to connection.
An instant bridge.
Instant bridge.
Tell me again the name of that quote about when words fail.
Yeah, it's when words fail, music speaks.
Music speaks. And who said that?
Hans Christian Andersen. At least that's what the the little plaque on my desk says,
I know
mom
it's
gave
hard.
it to
It's
me.
hard to know.
Hard to know.
I was on a plane one time and I was sitting next to this guy who worked for Brantley Gilbert, who's a country singer.
Okay.
And he had that tattooed on his
Oh,
forearm. And we spent the whole plane ride talking about music. And by
awesome.
the time we got off the phone, I felt like he was my best friend.
Yes.
Never saw him again, but I never forgot him either.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Because what your music does for you is exactly what my music does for me.
Yeah.
That's the beauty
Connected.
of it.
Yeah.
We have
Connected, loved, understood.
all of it.
Yeah.
The music effect, it's the same effect for each person. It's just the different delivery of whatever the music is, but it
Right.
has the same effect. So when I say music, I mean my music in my head, but I know you're thinking
My music.
this. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I don't actually talk about my music. I don't say the word my, because
Right.
the moment we do that, then we initiate a break.
Got it.
So I never talk about my music ever.
What is your favorite music?
Yeah, I don't talk about it.
Not now?
I couldn't resist. I just had to do that. No,
Totally suckered me. I'm like, what is it? Now I have to know.
that was so good. Like, I never talk about it. Well, what is it? I just set a boundary. I just said never. And you just stepped right over my boundary. Like I didn't even say it. I feel so unheard right now.
We're going to be best friends, right? I'm not great at boundaries. Boundaries. Best friends don't have boundaries.
Yeah, so I don't have a favorite music. I got to be honest with you. I have styles that I listen to more than often, but I have to recognize that. So EDM, I've always been a dance music lover. I've always loved music to dance to since I was a tiny kid. So today it's called EDM and I still listen to it. These subgenres called trance, house, progressive, mostly instrumental music that's got a strong rhythm, a really cool bass line, some floating vocals occasionally that just kind of float in over the top. So satisfying to my ear. I can listen to it forever. And there was a period of time, when I discovered classic rock when I was on a Boy Scout camp out, and it changed my life. Someone brought physical graffiti on a cassette tape, and classic rock has a very special place in my heart. And Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd specifically, those were the two bands that I spent high school, in those two worlds.
You're a stoner.
So, what's funny was I hadn't yet become one. For God's honest truth, I listened to Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd long before I ever drank or smoke.
Wow.
I discovered them when I was like 13 and I was an athlete. So I was very much the anti-smoker or drinker or anything, but the music itself stood on its own.
Yeah.
And then, you discover weed. And then you go back and you listen to these same things and you're just like, and you're just like, what?
Come on.
And you're just like this, it's another journey. And then there's a point where I'm like, okay, that's cool. And now I can enjoy music again. But there's something I should say about music that's important for all of us who are in recovery, which is your party playlist. For those who are in early recovery, the music that you listen to the most when you were using whatever it was you were using, you want to take a break from that playlist for quite a period of time. And because there's a neuroassociation in your head between the music, the memory, and then the emotions and the behaviors. They're linked. And so music can actually trigger cravings in users. And they've accidentally discovered this before in lab studies. And we know it from tons of anecdotal evidence. But someone will be in treatment and they'll be doing really good work. And then they'll go listen to that playlist that they used to all the time at the end of the day. And then suddenly they don't know why they're suddenly behaving in the same way. Well, they have a prompt. It's a behavioral prompt. So we have to be really careful. We have to understand, we have to honor music and the power of music as a behavioral prompt, because people pregame to music and they party to music and they post-game to music. Yeah. So the good news is there's a universe of music out there. So there's other music to listen to, and you alone will be the only person who will know when it's okay to listen to it again, because you'll give it a year and then you'll go listen to it. And if you have that squirrely response and you feel your kind of blood pressure, you feel your body heating up a little bit, you feel yourself getting a little squirrely, you might feel like your blood, you're like, I'm not ready. But if you do listen to that party playlist a year later and there's no emotional reaction, it's just inert, you might as well be listening to anything else. You can go back to it because that neuroassociation had pruned by that point and is no longer there. So that's an important piece that people don't like to talk about. Like, is there a contraindication to music listening? Well, yes. And this is very specific to this population trying to accomplish this thing.
I have never heard anybody talk about that. Never in all this time. So I was always happy to learn something new. I'm always learning something new. No, that is brilliant. That's really good. Listen, how do people get a hold of you? How do people work with you?
Yeah, you can come find me at timringgold.com. That's my, kind of landing page. If you would like some gifts or, just like a tool to use to be able to relax to, a lot of people in recovery have trouble falling asleep.
Yeah.
And so my tool is called the Relaxation Vacation. And when you go to my website, you'll just see right there, it just asks you, would you like to take a relaxation vacation? And you'll say, why, yes, Tim, because I can't take any other kind of vacation right now. And you'll put your name and your email address and whatever the little code is to prove you're not a robot. And then check your spam folder for an email from me. And you'll get access to a 15-minute audio, which is, there's 3 tracks. One is me leading you through this experience, this powerful reconnection with a safe memory to my guitar. Mm-hmm. Another version is just my voice with no music. And then another version is just the guitar. And let me tell you, classical guitar played at 60 beats per minute is like the trifecta for falling asleep. So if you have any trouble falling asleep, go download that and fall asleep to that and put it on a playlist and have it repeat 3 times, do whatever. But I have countless emails from people explaining how that's now that cues the relaxation response so that their body can take over and go to sleep.
That is such a gift, Tim, because I tell you what, early recovery, people suffer from boredom. They can't fall asleep. Like, forget about the sex life in the beginning. It's so weird. But handling emotional triggers, social triggers, things like that. I mean, this is really a gift. This is really good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I really mean it. I say that to everyone, but I really mean it. I'm just kidding.
No, but I'll tell you candidly, I was working in the cancer center and I was doing this with patients who were getting chemo. And this one patient said to me, she goes, do you have this on CD? And I said, no, I just do it live with patients. And she got really mad at me. Really. She was like, I need this at 2 a.m. And you can't give this to me at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
okay.
Like, served. And she was right. I was like, I need to make a physical version of this that people can use because I can't be in their room as their minstrel, Yeah. So, but I can with recording technology. And so this is,
God, that must have been a while ago.
That was a while ago because I said CD.
Because you said CD. Yeah. Now we have digital downloads.
Once again, Tim dates himself.
It's okay. I'm older than you. That's why picking up what you're putting down.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Tim, this has been such an enlightening conversation for me. I mean, you and I are both like self-help junkies, right? Like,
happily.
Yeah. Love getting new information. Like that's what lights my brain on fire now is like any new little tool or tactic or anything that I can share with my community that's going to help them. I mean, for everyone that's listening, I mean, you're going to have to go. I always put all the links in the show notes where people can go and get stuff, but I'm excited for them. I mean, who doesn't have, trouble falling asleep on occasion? Last night, I can't wait to go. I'm actually going to go do it myself. You're going to see my email come through. I have no idea why I couldn't sleep last night. And so I have this hypnotherapy type. Yeah, there's, you go like Michael Celia, somebody on YouTube that you can go and there's like 8-hour audios that you can. And so nothing worked last night. And I just tossed and turned on. I don't know what that was about, but I cannot wait to get my hands on this audio recording. So
I hope you enjoy it.
And the guitar.
Hope you enjoy it. And for those of you listening to our voices right now, you won't want to miss Arlena on our summit because she's going to be talking about reinvent and how to fix the one thing that affects your health, your love life, and your finances. So if you want to hear us playing the same kind of ping pong together on that conversation, you just go to stresseliminationsummit.com and register for the free summit in January. It's January 25th through the 29th. And Arlene is one of our kickoff speakers on our first day on that Monday. So you're not going to want to miss that.
I'm so excited, Tim. And I'm just so grateful for the service that you're doing. I mean, anybody who dedicates their life to helping others has a special place in my heart. You know?
Well, right back at you. Like
I mean, I know
like.
how hard it is. Yeah, I know how hard it is to do all this stuff. And I don't think people consuming really, understand, like, it's definitely a passion project, right? It's like
yeah. I at some point I had this thought, which is, addiction comes from the Latin word enslavement. Addictio. And what would happen is if you couldn't pay your bill, you lost your freedom to the person you owed the debt to, and you became addicted to them. That's the English translation.
What?
Yeah, this is from Father Richard Rohr, shared this story. And so it means enslavement, a loss of freedom, which is really an accurate term because it's like the kryptonite, the loss of power, right? Like you are not free to make the decision, don't do it. You don't have the experience of being free to choose. And so you're enslaved. That's I put a spell on you. And, so then what happened, recovery then is liberation. You really are free again. You find your freedom. You claw your way to freedom. And then, so some people don't ever, aren't functionally impacted by something they're addicted to. So this is not a journey that they experience this lap. Some people have a conscious awareness that they're addicted to something. They don't do anything about it. The rest of their life is working good enough, or isn't, and they're not willing to do anything about it. A third type of people recognize that and do something about it and claw their way to freedom and then live a happy life and don't look back. And then there's the fourth. And the fourth person does all of that and then turns back around and reaches out their hand and helps the next person claw their way to freedom.
That's the best part.
And that's you and me.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
It makes me so happy when somebody receives something that helped me. It makes me so happy.
It's so exciting, right? Like, yes.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's all I want to do. I just want to pass everything I've known. When I lead the groups for the teens, I'm a fucking preacher. Are you kidding me? I tell them, I'm like, strap in. And even with the guys in the like adult sessions, I'll be like, guys, strap in, because I may never see, I'm only here once a week and you're going to either be here or not next week. We may never have another hour together.
Buckle up, motherfuckers.
Buckle the fuck up. And they're just like, Jesus, who is this guy? And I'm like, and I'm not even on coffee. So like, when you know I'm on purpose.
I'm on purpose.
I'm
not on coffee.
Point.
I'm on purpose. Tim, how am I going to possibly, you have said so many like golden nuggets. How am I supposed to pick something for your title? I have no idea.
God. Good luck with
the title of this episode is going to be so many good things.
I always encourage, to just put the words music therapy, because a lot of times people are like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That's just two words put together that intuitively they feel good about, they don't know anything about, and they want to hear more about, particularly if it's referring to, recovery. But all the time I get picked to speak places because people are like, your topic is just so intriguing because we all have such a good relationship with music. We want to know more. And then you explain it the way you explain it. It's like suddenly music's in like 4D. Yeah. After you explain it, it was 3D and we already loved it. And then you give us this whole new dimension to how to relate to music and engage and connect with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, how about music therapy? How music saves lives.
There you go.
Love it. I've never chosen a title with someone actually on the podcast, but there you have it.
We're just breaking the mold today. Just smash. Won't need that anymore.
Oh my gosh, Tim, thank you so much for your time. You've been so generous with all your knowledge. And I can just tell you have such a passion for this like I do. So I'm so excited about the summit. So I'm actually publishing this this week. So anyway, Thursday of this week. Don't make me do math. What is it like is that Christmas? Thursday is Christmas?
Christmas Eve. This goes out Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve, yes.
Oh, that's special.
That would be fun. Everyone's going to be home like, oh my God, I have to be with my family. I need a podcast.
Yeah, you can put music therapy to escape stress.
To escape stress.
And they'll be like, I got stress to escape. I'm going to listen to that right about now. And if there's anything good, always find the good, right? And with COVID, like many of you are not with family members you'd rather not be with. So no life, people, there is that. Because
Hmm.
that's
Silver
just,
lining.
there are silver linings and your job is to go find them. They're always there if you look.
They're always there if you look. Well, Tim, thank you so much. This was just solid gold. I can't wait to publish this, and I'll enjoy talking to you on the summit.
I know. I can't wait till it's you sharing all the nuggets. It's going to be super fun. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast and just fitting me into your schedule. This has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay.